perspectives. Yinka Kenny in the studio, Abib Abdul, and Dr. McGinger. We're still here. We're still talking about the Ebola and the Ebola menace and all that went down in the year 2014. How it started and how we went through it. How we also played a major role in other West African states. We had dealt so much about the sacrifices Dr. Adadevo made to make sure that the menace is being curbed and was not spread more than it was. And at the end of the day, she was the sacrificial lamb, or one of the major sacrificial lamb for Nigeria to overcome the menace of Ebola. We talked so much about the sacrifices she made. Right now, we're still with Dr. McGinger. We want to talk about his trip to Sierra Leone and what went down in Sierra Leone. He's coming back to Nigeria, and we're going to talk about the medal. There's so much talked about medal. So, Dr. McGinger, you want to put us, you want to lead us on to your trip to Sierra Leone?
Before you go to your trip to Sierra Leone, I want to ask, you guys came forward and volunteered at the risk of your life as at then. Was there any form of insurance? Was there any, insurance policy? Because we all know the dangers, the risk involved. I expect that there would be an insurance policy before starting.
Well, that part is not even an issue because we are healthcare workers. Okay. Ab initio, it's a part of our job to, encounter, risk. Okay. So personally, the insurance part, I do not have any grudge, but I think there was a group insurance by the African Union. How serious it was, I do not know, but that's not even an issue. We weren't going for any other thing other than to be who we trained to be. That is, to treat people with disease, even though that was a peculiar circumstance because Ebola was really very high risk. So actually what happened was that, especially those of us that had prior experience with the Ebola thing, guys from Lagos here and guys from Port Harcourt. Remember that Ebola also happened in Port Harcourt. At least they had a few patients there. Mm-hmm. So a few guys there, and then others who also indicated the willingness to be part of the campaign. So what happened was the African Union requested for assistance from certain countries, especially Nigeria, because it was making the news that Nigeria was able to contain Ebola. I guess it was breaking news because the whole world didn't expect much from us, considering our history of not doing things right. So on its own, it was a national new level. I really hoped it was the next level. So we went on secondment around the 5th of December 2014. We left. First we stopped over in Liberia, then dropped off some guys, and then moved on to Sierra Leone. Nigeria was only involved in Sierra Leone and Liberia. Okay. And some other countries covered Guinea. So we came into Sierra Leone. I must tell you that it brought a new spirit because the citizens were like, Nigerians, hey, they got the magic wand. They are here, So even the other nationals, the Americans, British people, Nigerians came in with pomp and pageantry, So when we arrived, personally, my team, we were sent to Port Loko district. Okay. So we arrived around 2 a.m. It was pitch dark. The noticeable thing was that the whole country was, on a shutdown. It was a military campaign because the rate of spread was fast and furious. You had whole communities wiped out, families. The Ebola was burning like a wildfire. It was a raging fire, consuming everything in its way. So there was roadblock practically every other meter. You have roadblocks, checkpoints. The military was practically running the whole communities. So at every of those checkpoints, everybody would be checked. The citizens were not allowed to move freely. So even if you're traveling by, in a car, all of you will have to come down. They monitor you the way you walk. Are you looking sick? Are you acting sick? Then your temperatures will be checked. You're expected to wash hands. So it was a huge, the whole world was there, and that didn't deter the disease. They were still new cases every day, springing up here and there, springing up even on unlikely places. Sometimes people will panic, and like somebody who had Ebola, there were cases where people ran away from the holding center, went back to their families, transferred to their families.
Wow.
There are, so
people
incident,
from-
yes, from the holding
From
center.
the- oh.
A particular man was going back to meet with his wife, and his wife got Ebola, his kids, and all that. People still carried out secret burials, and do the burial rites of washing the corpse and come down with Ebola. So there were, ignorance played a major role, and the belief system.
Actually, there was not enough sensitization at
No,
that point in time.
it wasn't enough. Even though I wouldn't say there was no sensitization going on, but it wasn't enough. Ignorance is something deep-seated. You're talking about people's sensibilities. So even with all the awarenesses over the radio and everything, people still carried out secret burials. We just said that somebody will come with signs, and when you trust the person is positive for Ebola, on clocking, when you ask questions, you find out there had been a burial. And then you begin to trace all the persons. Imagine trying to trace everybody that participated in a burial. A lot of times some people still slip through the. So it was a huge thing. For instance, the hospital we were taken to that night, when we came in, it was pitch dark, like walking into the hell. I could touch the darkness, So we landed at the Lungi airport, and then we were transported. Some people were transported through the Pontin. We were transported to the Port Local district, some others to Cambia, some others to McKinney, and all that. So when we arrived at St. John of God Hospital, gist had it that hospital, there was a burglary, and they prayed that the person who stole would die. So somebody took ill, and they were celebrating. That person died. They said that was a suspect. So they now felt that God had answered their prayer.
Oh my
Then another person took ill, and they said he knew and he didn't say it. So people, by the time the rate of death increased, and they panicked, and when the government people came in and noticed that it was Ebola, the hospital was shut in. Doctors, nurses, patients, special relatives, all the ancillary staff of the hospital. A lot of people came down with Ebola there. It took a while before they could go in there to provide some rescue. By the time we came, the hospital went into a higher spirit. When we came, we brought hope to that place, and we partnered with them to do a lot of things. So at some point, there was a particular day that we were working I was working in the general hospital at the Port Local District Hospital. So there was this American that came like a few days earlier. Exuberantly, he was trying to help out like most volunteers would. And that particular day, I think we were working on a patient that we were trying to resuscitate. At some point, he fainted, so we helped resuscitate him.
The patient or the American?
The American.
The American.
A doctor. So actively, his country, the military came in with a chopper, lifted him immediately to the town, Freetown, and, provided medical help for him immediately. It was magical because as we were talking, communication went through. Within moments, there was chopper landing inside the hospital compound. I'm like, wow. Would this happen if it was me? Of course not.
Oh my God.
So they lifted my guy and left for the city. And, by the next morning, rumor came in that he tested positive to Ebola. And we panicked because many of us, about 5 Nigerians then, we were in contact with him, nurses. And I think I was the only doctor, the others were nurses and stuff. So we were advised, and of course we knew to monitor ourselves, not really go into full-fledged quarantine at the time, but to monitor ourselves and limit contact with people and all that. So we had the thermometer checking temperatures, and mine was fluctuating kind of, and I began to feel a little sickly, like I had malaria. And I just told my colleagues, who said, maybe it's nothing. But I woke up one morning and I wanted to ease myself, and I saw blood in the toilet. I used the room alone. I didn't have visitors. Of course, it was not an atmosphere where you take him. Everybody was mindful of every person. You limit contact. Yes. So nobody could have messed in
Your
toilet. So where was the
So
blood
let me
coming
hold
from?
your thoughts a little bit. I just want to tell our viewers that we're sorry this morning that we can't pick calls, and presently we cannot read your messages, but we implore you to drop your message via text messages or WhatsApp messages. The number to drop your messages on is 0810-851-6644. The number you can drop your messages on is 0810-851-6644. Please send us a text message or send us a WhatsApp message, and we promise you that when we come your way next week, your messages will be read.
All right. So so I called my colleagues. I'm like, see what I see, So the guys, the truth in, everybody came to visualize it and tried to cheer me up. To be honest with you, I panicked. I panicked because of, people I left behind and all that. So I thought about how to handle it, called a close friend who is a doctor in Nigeria to look at what has happened. Nobody knows about this, but at least if anything goes wrong, now you know. Called my friend and told him what he could do if, anything really goes wrong. Sorry. So,
Sorry about that.
yeah, it was death. The worst thing that could happen to anybody is to wait to die. The certainty of
The time bomb.
yeah. If it happens by surprise, it's a different thing. But when you are checking your time, is it time? But certainly you are going to die. I guess that's the worst life. I found myself in that situation. What happened was that I had to rev up all my, comic abilities. I was trying to crack joke about it with my friends, But those quiet moments that you're alone, the reality, you do a home check, the devastation, the heartbreak is going to cut your loved ones, the hopes you have built for yourself, where your aspirations and what you planned for yourself, that this is like writing the last chapter of your life, just at the middle of the book. And, it broke my heart into pieces. There were times where I couldn't even cry. I mean, it was afterwards that looking back, I could, shed a tear or two. But at that point in time, everything dried up. There was this feeling of hollowness. I felt empty. I felt defeated. I felt flaccid like a piece of cloth, And then the hopelessness of the situation was the fact that we sent out an SOS to, the leadership of our contingent that time, the African Union. I will say the African Union because the leadership in the field represent the authorities. I dare tell you that up to today, I never got any response from anybody.
What?
Nobody ever bothered to, there were politics on the ground, complaints about poor welfare, but when an establishment has provided things to take care of people who are working for them, and you notice that down the line, the African thing is happening, and, your requests are basic, like, Pali, I know up to $100 is being spent on my upkeep or every other day. Can I have at least the basic things? Can I have a shelter? Not much worse than where I came from. I'm a medical doctor. Basically, I could afford certain basic things. If they were not provided for, I would understand that this is the situation.
Exactly.
It hurts when you know that,
there
are provisions for these things that somebody is just not letting you have them. You understand? So naturally, you as a human being, you would grumble that, I could have just had electricity. I could have just had a bottle of water to drink, stuff like that. So these things, I guess the complaints had, put some of us in the bad books of a few persons who felt that it was an affront and stuff like that. So, but it was really like extreme to ignore an SOS because of whatever misgivings you may have against this. I'm like,
life is at risk.
I'm talking about my life here, and if for instance I had died, it would have been it would have caused a ruckus, because, I came from somewhere. People would have asked questions. My country would have asked questions. You understand? So it was the height of, I don't know, irresponsibility. The team leader, he sent the message because we were there when he said, guy, it's your duty to communicate this thing. They did. These guys ignored it till date. So I kept myself in confinement for, 21 days, and miraculously, I recovered. I don't know to use the word recovery because I don't know if I had Ebola or not. Okay. I just knew that, there were some signs, and it wasn't so serious like the typical case that would knock someone off. But yes, I had some signs, and especially that blood was, it was an alarm bell at that point in time. So.
But you, as a medical doctor, you should be able to say that, because if you are able to diagnose, from other people, if you are able to tell, if I have Ebola, you should be able to.
Ebola has the same signs as basic things we treat every day. Malaria, it's just one of a battery of differential diagnosis. The only definitive diagnosis about Ebola would be the PCR testing. You understand? And besides that, there are different levels of the sickness. Somebody will come down with Ebola and you will see this person is being knocked down, stooling, vomiting, cramps, blood, and everything. The signs are there, classical. There are other people who are, more lucky that you just have, probably even no sign except fever. Okay, and they have Ebola. So it depends on how someone was affected. So usually you have to test the person to say for sure.
So did you not go through the test?
Yeah, I'm telling you that nobody gave me a response. How would I get
even where you are supposed to be taking care
No, because we go to. It's not like it's the same place I was camped that we were going to work. Okay. You understand? So when this happened, we had taken ourselves away. You understand? It's a distance, almost an hour journey. So we had taken ourselves away, and so what we did basically was to monitor. You understand? Continue to check the temperature. I got a supply of anti-malaria through my colleagues, and I took my anti-malaria. It didn't progress, but I lived in that apprehension for that. So, as God may have it. Nothing happened. So I can't say that I had Ebola. Like I said, I was never, ever tested. It could have been good old malaria. But what has no explanation till date? The blood. I saw blood, frank blood, fresh blood.
So it could have just been early stages of Ebola.
It could have been Ebola, anything.
Let me ask this question. Ebola is a viral disease, right?
Yes.
We know of some viral diseases that mild exposure could serve as a form of immunity. Does it happen with Ebola too?
Well, no. There's no. I'm not sure that Ebola would give you immunity. There are a lot of things that are not complete. The exposure to Ebola does not give you immunity. There can actually be infection. Okay. So Ebola does not give you immunity.
So
we can't even have a vaccine for your.
Well, there could be. I think they are developing a vaccine, but that's not from previous exposure.
Okay.
Okay,
let's fast forward to your journey back to Nigeria.
Okay. Oh wow. Well, we came back. What happened was that the last regime had, at least with the NCDC that sent us out, they had plans to receive us because it was a feat. Nigeria sent about 200 personnel out there, about 40 or 50 doctors and then nurses, wash specialists and other ancillary health.
Did everybody come back alive?
Yeah, everybody did come back alive. So there was no casualty. So it was another feat. Yeah. Having succeeded in eradicating Ebola here, they sent out these guys. They are coming back after 6 months with 0 casualties. So, plans were on top gear to receive us, to honor us. They were meeting all kind of. There were rumors of all kind of things that the government wanted to do at the time.
Which is just supposed to be.
Yeah, but what happened was that there was a general election, and the then president lost the election. So by the time we came back, we landed in Abuja. We were kept in a hotel. They were trying, I noticed that, the NCDC, they were trying to see if there was anything they can. But the
former president,
but the government was closing shop. So a lot of other things were taking priority attention. And for a few days, we stayed there. So what happened was that eventually it didn't happen. There was no honor. There was no ceremony. So we were asked to go, that maybe we'll be recalled for that thing to happen. And that was it. There was no severance, anything. Nothing ever happened again. So we moved on. Guys have left. People, I'm sure one or two may have even passed on. Some others traveled abroad, So about a couple of months ago, some people reached out to me, some colleagues that they got.
Now we're talking about a space of between 2015 and 2019.
2019, yes. So they said that African Union had sent medals. Initially, that we were going to come to Abuja to a ceremony and receive the medals. But a few persons we are walking in and receiving a medal from Dr. Obasanya, and suddenly they said, okay, they are dispatching.
Without any ceremony?
Without, you just come in by yourself. So I communicated with Obasanya. He said he would get back to me. Later on, somebody called me that they dispatched some medals in Port Harcourt, and mine was
dispatched.
Yes, that she come to Port Harcourt. A lady, that worked with us. She was with the ministry in Port Harcourt. She said that they have some medals there, and mine was one of them. I said, okay, what's the deal? She said, nothing. Some guys are coming to pick their own. I said, okay, I will come and pick my own. The drama was just unfolded. It was a very laughable stuff to me, but I went. I called her. She told me where her office was. She needed to travel that morning. And I came into the office. She met me at the corridor. We walked in. She brought out boxes of stuff. I said, check through. You see your own. I checked through.
Just like that?
That's it. I said, what about you? She said, she don't take her own. I said, okay, that's it. I said, that's it.
Such a grievous...
I left. At that point, it was comic to me. It was hilarious. But so I guess it was my tweet. It wasn't even it was not an outburst, because I've reached that level where I can be shocked about things. What pains me majorly is the continued ignoring of Adadibo, basically. And someone like Justina Ajelano. Justina, it was on her first day on duty, and she contracted Ebola. Wow. A young girl like that, she perished. Nobody ever did anything. Adadibo, like I said, every year people receive unmerited awards in this country. But people like this who have done very heroic acts, the government needs to go out of its way.
Exactly.
To name...
And for all you care to know, you could have died.
Yeah, anybody
could have died. Any of the 200 people that left Nigeria, they could have died. When Nigerians make sacrifices, a lot of Nigerians make sacrifices, weighty, sacrifices.
Yes.
The least the government can do is just to acknowledge and recognize these people, because
and that informs our value system.
Exactly.
The painful thing is that people, one can easily say that you are looking for attention or you want government money or stuff like that. But the point is that people who have not done anything, they are getting their attention.
Exactly.
And they're also taking government money. You understand? I have been into medical missions even before I graduated from medical school. We do a lot of charities. We don't wait for people to necessarily clap. But the point is that this was a national assignment. Exactly. This was something that Nigeria did for Africa.
Exactly.
You understand?
And Nigeria got the glory.
So it was supposed to actually be a high point. But if not for politics, I think this was done for Nigeria. It wasn't Goodluck Jonathan. It wasn't. I think a government is a continuum. They should be able to say that Nigeria did this. Nigeria won the World Cup when Abacha or whoever was. Nigeria won. You can't say that the Nations Cup we won in 1994 that it's no longer Nigeria because the regime has changed.
It is still it is in
the memory lane. So this kind of things should be archived. There should be a ceremony to say that at least there is a positive story coming out of Nigeria. Exactly. We were able to do this and that for the world. That is the point we are making. I'm a Nigerian. I'm not a lesser Nigerian than anybody. So it's a complaint that has to do with our national values, the things we see as our priorities.
Yes.
That is the point. So it's not like, no, I'm not broke. Even if I was broke, the right thing just needs to be done. Do the right thing.
So the truth is, even everything is not really about money. Like
Yes.
the value system. What do the children look up to, look forward to?
Exactly.
You tell a story of an Adadebo today. You name an institution after her, and then somebody comes years later. Why? Who is this person? We have halls in university campuses named after, our heroes.
Yes.
And then people would ask questions. What did this person do to deserve this? Then you hear the story and it will inspire someone.
Younger ones to want to do things.
Exactly.
Yes.
My people, from where I come from, they will say that when you value a person, it makes the person do more. And on that note is where we're going to call it a wrap on the show. You can send your text messages and WhatsApp messages to 0810-851-6644. And I promise you that when we come your way, next edition, we will read your messages. We've been talking to Dr. McGinger. He came all the way from Enugu to be on the show, and I really had to pin him down to do this because we really had to, get the full
story out.
Yeah, the full story from the horse's mouth.
Exactly.
Yes, we really appreciate your being here.
Thank you.
On the show today. It's really been a pleasure, and at one point in time, he almost busted.
Yeah, it's emotional.
Yes,
really.
yes. I tell you, just having to recount the memories and that anything could have happened.
We thank God that you are alive today to recount.
Yes.
It could have been the other way.
Exactly, but we want to just encourage Nigerians that we cannot just say because the country is still at this stage and probably some things are not recognized, we will stop doing the things we ought to do. We can't stop doing the good things we ought to do. We can't stop making sacrifices for ourselves.
Humanity should come first.
Exactly, and we believe for a better Nigeria. I always say that Nigeria is work in progress, and I know that someday we will get there. I will call it a wrap. Habib, we have to go right now.
Yes, work in progress it is, but we need to make faster progress. But good thing, we have people like Dr. McGinger, people like that have sacrificed, and we'll continue to recognize and do our own bits, the little we can, we will do it. To come your way again.
All right. Yes, our social media platform on Facebook and on Instagram at Watch Perspectives. On Twitter at See Perspectives. You can like and follow me on my page on Facebook at Yinka Kenny World. On Instagram and Twitter at Yinka Kenny 1. Thank you so much, Doctor, for being here this morning. I tell you, it's been a beautiful show this morning. I wait to receive your messages, and we'll read it when we come your way, same time next week. I am Yinka Kenny. Stay blessed.